Since Pebble Geo version 1.13, we've added an alternative way of using Excel to do your data logging in Pebble Geo. To get started, you can click the Start Logging Using Excel button from the home screen of the desktop app. Alternatively, you can go via the menu in the top right. Let's click this button and see what happens. The old style project-based workbook is still supported and comes up as the default mode. If you click across here to the individual Excel, it will give you a preview, and if you click OK, it will prompt you to start logging your first borehole. Make sure to choose a folder where you're going to put all of your borehole data for this project. It's important to keep all of the holes in the same folder. Pebble Geo will propose an initial borehole ID. You can overwrite this, but I'm just going to stick with that for the moment. It will also propose a project ID. I'm going to change that to demo-1. You can put client, contractor, engineer information in here and so on if you wish, but you don't have to at this stage if you don't want to. So I'm just going to fill in a couple of things and click Save. You'll be informed that you're now in single borehole mode. It's also important to notice that because of the two different templates, they're now exclusive in terms of mode. You can either work into project-based within one session or into the single hole-based template, but you can't mix and match. Click OK. It will open the folder you're working into, just for convenience. Let's minimize that. And it will also open the data logging template. Let's arrange the windows so we can see this a little better. So you can see here it's pre-populated with PH1, which is the ID I put into the creation dialog, and then you can just go ahead and start logging. It defaults to the whole page, but you can tab across to the project sheet if you want to start modifying the project information. So let's add something to this sheet, and let's go back to the hole and start logging the data. The types of data in the data fields available in this template are exactly the same as in the project-based template in previous versions of Pebble Geo. It's just laid out in a slightly different way so as to be more optimized for working on one hole at a time. The basic idea is to tab between each sheet and obviously to scroll down and complete the sections that you need to for the hole that you're working on. Let's choose a method, and let's choose a multi or compound method: trowel pit into cable percussion into rotary core. As always with Pebble Geo, you don't have to fill out every field. There's actually a handy key on the project tab which shows you which fields are mandatory, which are recommended, and so on. Let's put some easting and northing values in here. Let's put a ground level. Let's put a start date. You can enter a start date in Excel using Control key and then the colon key on the keyboard. That will insert today's date. Let's add a remark for the location. If you want to have line breaks in this remark, in Excel you can hold down the Alt key and hit Enter, and it will add a line break. Let's save these edits in Excel and see what happens in the Pebble Geo app. When I refocus the app, you'll see the refresh button has been highlighted green. This means it's detected changes in the borehole Excel file, or files if you've got multiple boreholes, and you can pull those changes across. So you can now see that information starting to pull through. Let's go back to the template and explore the different options for the data logging. It's up to you how much information you put in, as I said, and you can skip these sections if you don't want to complete them. But let's say you want to put full information for your drilling method. So let's say the first 3 meters was the trial pit, or more specifically, let's say it was inspection pit. You can put plant information in there. This is all again the same information that you could put into the old style spreadsheet. And then we just keep scrolling down. So we put that trial pit to 3 meters. So let's start the cable percussion at 3 meters and take that down to 6.2 meters. Select the method as CP. And then let's say rotary core went down to 14.8 meters. Let's pick RC. Okay. Water strikes. Let's say we had a water strike at 4.55 meters. You can actually just leave it at that. Let's see how that looks in the log. So we've already got our water level here, but you can also do rest levels, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Click refresh, print logs. And now we have a rest level. So the general idea then is just to scroll down, filling out the information you need. Let's say I've got a standpipe, like this. You can enter a second pipe if you wish. By the way, these pipe references are pre-populated, but you can modify them if you wish to set your own. Backfill, 3-digit legend code. This is just for testing. I'm entering nonsense values, please ignore me. Let's see how the log looks at this stage. And now we have the backfill and the pipes coming in. Hole construction information goes into this hole sheet as well, so we can fill out hole diameter, information, casing diameter, and so on. Chiseling, progress by time or shift information, although it's rudimentary shift information there. Drilling flush, water added information, and then any other depth related remarks. So let's put one of these in just to see how it turns up. Click refresh, print logs. And that data will start to turn up in the supplementary sheets. Back to the template. Let's go across to the Geological Descriptions tab. So each stratum is highlighted with a yellow tab on the left for stratum 1, stratum 2, stratum 3 and so on. If I put in a first stratum, let's say 0 to 2 meters, made ground. This is my legend code, this is my description. For the description I can choose from the drop down list, and or I can just free text type into here. It's up to you. Formation name is for like a geological formation or secondary code you can use to group the strata. Detailed descriptions, if you spot something specific that you want to note within the stratum, then you can add that here. So that's the information for one stratum. You'll see as soon as I put a base into the one above, it will pre-populate the top depth of the one below, just to save a little bit of time. Let's say we then go into clay and it's London clay. Say silty clay. Add a little bit more information, and let's see how that looks in the logs. Refresh, print. And you can see the logs starting to build up. Samples again, just another sheet. Just enter whichever information you want. There's a handy drop down for the types. Sample references are pre-populated just numerically from 1 onwards. You can modify them if you wish. The tests have their own sheet, so specifically these in situ tests are photoionization, hand penetrometer and shear vein test results. Shear vein's a little bit more involved because you can actually put multiple values and residual remolded values into there if you wish. I'm making these values up, so please ignore me if they don't make any sense. It's just to demonstrate. Save that, refresh, print logs. And you can see that information pulling through. Here's my bulk disturbed sample, here's my hand shear vein, test and residual. And the final sheet in the tests group is the SPT. So SPT, because it's a little bit special, the format's a little bit more involved, it actually has its own sheet just to make it a bit easier to work with. So an SPT, let's say we do that at 6.2 meters. You can put optional additional information, like you can put a water depth in there if you want to. Hammer serial number is just used for reporting. The energy ratio, if you fill that out, it will actually be used for the SPT N60 values if you want to display those in the log at the print options dialog. Blow counts, 2, 5 for the seating. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 for the test, and it will assume by default penetration increment of 75 millimeters. So that's a standard SPT. Let's do one at 8.4 meters with a refusal. You can also set the type if you wish, so standard or cone if it's unconsolidated. So let's say this one was a bit tougher, and let's say we had a refusal. So we're going to get to n equals 50 on here, 10, 20, 20 on the 3 test drives, and it will show green then to say that the test is complete. If I put 21, it will go red just to warn you, but it will still allow the data to come in. Once you've got a refusal, you will then need to manually specify the penetration that you got to within that test drive. So let's say 35 mil. If I save this, print logs, and here are the 2 SPTs, a complete SPT with n equals 10, a complete SPT with n equals 10, and a refusal with 35 millimeters with the third test drive. So you can put as many of those in as you want. I think we've got space for about 20 SPTs in there. The final 2 sheets are if you're into rotary method, you've got a coring, so you can put your core on information, and you can put your rock quality values in there. I'm putting just random values in just to show you the data entry format. And you can also, if you want to, put your fracture spacing. You can either use max, average, min, or if you put an FI value, it will switch to that instead in the log. Okay. Final sheet for data entry is the dynamic probe. There's a little bit of information at the top of this sheet just because it's important. If you're doing a dynamic probe, if I go back to the whole sheet, in order for dynamic probe to turn up as a log, you must choose DP dynamic probe as the method in the whole sheet at the top. Otherwise it won't know to display that log as a dynamic probe log. It will assume it's a geology log. So your information in here, again, you can put as much or as little data into the metadata as you want. It just ends up on the report. But the start depth and the increment are obviously important. If the test starts at the top of the hole, just leave that at 0. If it's a standard 100 millimeter blow count increment, just leave that 100. But you can obviously modify those. So if we started the test at 2 meters, for example, you can see then the test depth values auto increment down this column C here. And then it's just a case of putting your blow counts in. You can put torque values in if you want, and so on. And that is the basics of how to use the single borehole template. If you want to start logging a second hole in this mode, you need to click this button down in the bottom right. And you'll see here that it's now auto incremented to BH2. The project data is grayed out because you can't modify the project twice because you have to set that at the start. If I click that, it will now open my BH2 template and I can start working into here. Just a quick note about project. Each workbook relates to one borehole, but it also has a project sheet. So just be careful never to modify the project ID within the same folder because it will block the import if the project ID doesn't match. And that's how to use the single borehole data entry system.